Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Rig on Wheels show featuring MVT. This is your first ever truck driver recruitment show, and I am your host, Kameel E. Gaines, the CEO and founder of Rig on Wheels. And with us is Robert Pierson, our favorite VP of recruitment over there at Mesilla Valley. And look, this is the second week in a row we got you in Houston. Yeah. Look at there. So we got a great show for you today. We cover industry insights, news. We got some good news, strange news, bad news. We got some hot jobs for you, of course, driver tips and recruiting tips. So, yeah, make sure you follow us and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on wherever you're looking at this podcast or show. They say it's not a podcast. This is a show. Okay, guys? So let's get started. Let's start with the bad news. I'm a Virgo. We like to go with the bad first.
Well, we don't have the latest numbers on fuel. That hasn't come out yet today. It's scheduled to, but hasn't come out yet. With that said, truck tonnage for the month of January is down about 4.7% versus the year before, which is, of course, influencing the spot market. Current spot market rate for dry vans is sitting at about $1.71 a mile. It's not real good when you consider last week fuel went up 21 cents a gallon on the national average. With that said, we've talked a little bit about it here. We're looking at the second half of the year picking up. We've seen a lot of capacity leave between the drug clearinghouse taking about 160,000 drivers off the road, have a lot of the owner-operator base or small fleets that have come off the road because they've relied heavily on the spot market. We see it in trucks being returned to a lot of the OEMs at this point and dealerships and distributors at this point. It stinks right now. There's no getting around that fact. Any recruiter that tells you we're setting records this year is lying to you. There is no possible way that is correct unless it's a one-truck fleet owner who found a golden nugget someplace. Right. With that said, the second half of the year probably looks pretty good. And if freight goes up 5% because of that capacity going away, it's going to feel a lot busier than that. And so one of the things I'll point to, and DAT has a lot of, the DAT has a lot of good freight analytics. When the current freight market cycle ends and the next one begins, one thing is for sure, we'll need more drivers and more trucks. That's great for driver pay. That's great for rates, supply versus demand. After the amount of for-hire carriers doubled between mid-2020 and the end of 2021, the industry has witnessed a slew of exodus of carriers since. When the market turns, there'll be fewer trucks and drivers to handle more loads. The big question is when in 24 this will occur. As we start 2024, large truckload carrier capacity levels continue to contract after unprecedented expansion. They are right around the same levels they were at the end of the second quarter of 2020, immediately after the pandemic upended the economy and demand crashed. So with that said, you got lower freight rates. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of shippers basically getting their pick of the litter in terms of what carrier they want to use. They are really looking closely at service. And so it's either they're going after a carrier that will run it as cheap as possible, or they're going for carriers that are at 99% or better on-time percentage. For those drivers and those companies that are able to get through the next 3 to 6 months, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'd imagine the second half of this year, and some shippers are starting to realize this too. We've seen shippers that go, hey, we want a long-term relationship with you, trying to lock in rates over the next year or 2 years, because they know that something's coming in the second half of the year, that those shippers that rely heavily on C.H. Robinson or other broker boards will get taken to the woodshed if they don't lock in rates right now. So you'll see a lot of carriers start to pick up some dedicated opportunities. You'll see a lot of carriers start to pick up some new customers here, in particular if they can show that their service levels are up to standard. So you as the driver, this is where the money doesn't show up right away for your bottom line just yet. But if you take care of things, you take care of where you're at or where you're going to be going, you end up being one of those drivers that most carriers understand, hey, we can depend on this driver. The second half of the year could be very fun.
So that's some good news.
Yeah.
Once you gave us that bad news.
Yes, the bad news always has to kick it off. But yes,
Yes.
the good news is better.
And I got some other bad news. Flatbed is $1.99 and reefers $2.
Yeah.
But like you said, as the year goes on, we should be getting more. But it's gonna also, if we need more drivers, we were already in a shortage.
Yeah.
And even though people will say it's no driver shortage, we have an argument there, potatoes. It may not be any driver shortage per se, but let's be honest, there's a quality driver shortage.
Yes.
We're not talking about just somebody with a CDL. We know if we look at and go to the DMV, how many people have a CDL. We're not talking about that because no longer are companies looking for drivers. Companies want professional drivers, and we need to be talking about what that standard is and what companies are looking for in a driver now, what they want in a professional driver. So when we're talking about a driver shortage, we're not talking about folk that have a CDL. We're actually talking about professional drivers. So I guess we should stop saying, so people can stop saying, oh, there's no driver shortage. That really pisses me off every time I hear that. It gets on my dang blasted nerves. Because what we're saying, and it doesn't take a PhD to understand this, what everyone is saying literally is there is a professional driver shortage. So just in case you're having an issue understanding that, I do want to kind of make it very clear, there's a professional driver shortage. So now that we're going through this cycle again, and you were talking about at least it's better than it was in 2017, right?
Yeah, we're still 20 cents higher than we were in 2017. Yeah.
So now we're going through this motion again, 7 years later,
Yep.
right? We're going through this motion again as far as the driver shortage, again, is about to look ugly.
Yep.
So we'll talk about that in next segment.
Which if you're a professional driver is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna stick out, not as a sore thumb,
Yep.
but in a good way. But some strange news, or at least for me, it's strange. It may not be strange for Pierson, but I'm speaking for me, myself. So Truckers for Trump, hashtag Truckers for Trump, they are a few folk that are protesting and refusing to take freight to New York or New York City. So there is a fella that has about 241,000 followers on Twitter called Chicago Ray. And he said that he spoke to about 10 drivers that said that they were refusing to take loads. So we don't know how this is going to play out. I am all for folk protesting and having the freedom of their voice and everything, but we don't know if this is going to go from 10 to 20 drivers refusing. And so we'll see. Good thing you all don't take freight to New York.
Yeah, we don't go to New York City, but I always keep in mind, and we kind of talk about the numbers of drivers. There's about 3.5 million CDL holders in this country. About 2.1 million do what we do, Class 8, full truck and trailer. Mm-hmm. At that 2.1, professional-wise, I'd probably say it's 50-50. Unprofessional doesn't mean bad person. It could be their lifestyle choice, doesn't fit into the career path that they went into. Mm-hmm. With that said, my one thing that I would say is anybody when it comes to their career needs to be selfish. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that the 10 drivers refusing loads to New York is going to amount to a hill of beans. No, it won't. And I can promise you, given the current freight environment, there'll be 10 other people right behind them going, I'll take your load, please.
Yes.
With that said, you're correct. From a freedom of speech standpoint, and I think people misunderstand the First Amendment, it's a beautiful thing. The government can't come after you for your political views, and that is a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. With that said, as my wife would point out when I start sharing some of my views, it doesn't mean that you're going to be protected from public criticism or loss of money. So when you start refusing loads in the current environment that's very tight, you're walking a tightrope.
Yes. So sometimes you gotta let the people that can afford to pay $355 million.
Yes,
Just let them be, and you take your lows for your cents per mile up to New York City.
I don't know many of those people in trucking. I'm just saying, I don't know a lot of 350 million people.
Yeah, no, they really aren't in trucking. They're part of the 1%.
That's correct.
That's that.
That's correct.
But something else, I thought that this was funny. Not funny, but something. So for the 6th year in a row, the intersection of I-95 and
State Route
4 in Fort Lee, New Jersey is once again #1 freight bottleneck in the country. And the remaining 10 bottlenecks are 2 from Chicago, 2 from Houston, 3 from Atlanta. That's not a surprise, Jesus. 1 from Los Angeles, and 1 from Nashville. I gotta say, I think I'm surprised about Los Angeles. Maybe it's because we talk about Los Angeles or California being so crazy with traffic that I'm surprised.
Well, so I know that we don't have the same congestion we did in the port as we did in 2020 when we went through all the supply chain issues and barges were just sitting out there. The port has slowed down dramatically.
Okay.
And that's because a lot of the freight that comes into our country found alternatives when they had the strike out there, and they've not returned back to the port.
Yeah, there we go.
So you'll see a lot of the ports, like the port here in Houston, has gotten substantially busier over the last 2 years.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Because I'm like, okay. There, thank you for explaining that. Because I'm like, as much as we talk about that, but there we go. That makes absolute sense. Absolute. So what I want to do is go to commercial. But then when we come back, I want to dive more into the professional driver shortage and how we're going to combat that when it comes to driver recruitment. Because even though things are going to pick up, so that's good, but then we're going to really run into a problem because now we're going to be at even more of a driver deficit because the clearinghouse has now taken 161,000, and we're probably going to be closer to 200 in a few seconds, literally, per our conversations on the phone at Rig on Wheels.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, we talked about it last week. The safety blitz is going to be focused on drugs.
Yeah, the safety blitz that's coming up in May is going to be focused on drugs. So that's going to knock out a bunch of folks, even though you told them don't say no to drugs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we know that is going to work for 1 in every 10. But definitely, when we come back, I want to go over a few things that can maybe help us going forward. Some that we can start working on now, and then just things as the future grows, because this is definitely an issue or an opportunity, not necessarily an issue, but an opportunity for us to work on in our industry. So whatever commercial you want to go to, Kayla.
My name is Stacy Morton, and my position is OTR driver, and I've been with the company for 8 months. I enjoy being with part of the family because good miles, nice people, they listen to the drivers, the pay excellent here at MVT. The home time is very good. You get to go home anytime you want. The dispatchers are really nice. They listen to the drivers, whatever you want. They will do their best to give you what you need. And the equipment is good, and safety is excellent. Yeah, they're fast, and the roadside is good. They listen to you, and they get the job fixed in a timely manner. Yeah, I would recommend other drivers to come to MVT because this is a good place to work, and you get excellent home time and everything that you need here.
So some of the things welcome back, everybody. So I forgot my manners. So some of the things that Pierson and I were talking about was what can actually help when it comes to the professional driver shortage, because yes, things are going to get better as far as freight and everything. Of course, that's going to come around, but the actual human beings to drive the trucks, what are we going to do? Because we had a deficit before, and it's going to be even more of a deficit. So I wrote an article that is in Forbes and came out on what day did it come out? I think the 16th, it came out. And one of the things that we talked about was the driver shortage. That I talked about was driver shortage, aging workforce, lifestyle. But what we want to discuss is how can we actually help it? So some things that I wrote about in here were, we know pay. That's an absolute, but people don't stay or go because of pay, to be honest with you. But it is training and development, but up-to-date curriculum.
Yeah.
Not just the regular CDL schools. And like you said, Biden has what?
Though about a $48 million grant to the DOT and FMCSA, literally for the purpose of getting people into schools and getting their training and development going.
And that's what it needs. It needs to be up-to-date stuff because we have new technology. Eventually, the truck drivers are going to be considered operators. So their job, of course, they'll still be driving trucks, but their job will look different. They're going to be doing different things. So that's one thing. Also, not just us, but government-wise, but also within the companies, all of us are responsible for this, but promoting a positive industry image. So that's across the board. So that is us acknowledging, communicating to the drivers as professionals. If we communicate to them as professionals, they won't have a choice but to communicate back. If one doesn't communicate back to us as a professional, then guess what? They're not the person we should be talking to.
Yep.
That's just period. It's as if, and I say this all the time, I will only advocate for a professional driver because I want this industry to go back to respecting the drivers as if they're pilots. So if my pilot at United, because everybody knows that's my favorite airline, they have the nice wide seats, all of that good stuff, right? So if my pilot at United, I see him walking through IAH and he just shuffling his feet and shucking and jiving, and he's not wearing his uniform with pride and all of that, I don't want to get on his plane.
I get concerned.
I would get very concerned. So I'm not going to say, oh, he's just a pilot. I'm not giving him a pass. So it needs to be the same thing when we're discussing and talking to a truck driver. It needs to be the same way.
Yep.
We need to look at him as he's a professional and expect that he's going to respond as a professional. And if he's not doing that, then he shouldn't be driving the truck. Let me tell you, so I have a very good friend, Delmont. He's been in truck driving as a truck driver since the beginning of the time. It was his first job in the trucking industry, and he's done a lot of things. Truck driver, fleet manager, operations, all type of stuff. He's a young whippersnapper. He's almost 40 years old. And so today I was talking to him, and I said, you know, the truck drivers are now having to realize they can't just they can't no-show orientations. They have to actually show up. They can't, you know, all of this type of stuff. And he said, what do you mean, Kameel, no-show orientation? He had no idea because of the type of companies he actually worked for. He didn't know that that was a thing. Yeah. Even though he's been in trucking all of his time, he worked for companies that was a no-go. You had to show up your first day of work. And he worked at companies where the first 90 days you could not take off or you were immediately terminated. There was no, so he still worked at companies that have that mentality. It did not matter that you were a truck driver, right? So it needs to go back to that same mentality. And so it shouldn't be that now that MVT is doing that, it's such a shock. That should be across the board.
Yep.
If the truck driver is no showing, they should not be allowed to then apply for that company and get the job at any time again.
Look, if I got hired on in May of 2021 over at MVT, and that first day, I just didn't show up and I didn't call anybody. I would not be surprised when I come in the next week that they go, well, no, that ship has sailed.
Yes.
Like you vanished on us. And unfortunately, though, as an industry, we fed into that.
Yes.
There's a lot of people paying amends at this moment, not just drivers, but also carriers.
Yeah.
The caveat, though, is you're making that first impression.
Mhm.
You want people at any new company to get excited that you're there in the door. And so, unfortunately, we'll see at larger companies. I talk to my peers and they'll go, I had 5 people claim that their mom died and they can't come into orientation. Yeah. Now, did somebody's mom potentially die? Sure. Yeah. Statistically, that could happen, but not 5. We'd have a higher death rate if that was the case.
Yeah.
And so those are those things right now that, again, I hold myself to the same standard. I hold any of the people that work for me to the same standard. It's that professionalism of, I'm a truck driver. It's not like the guard shack that's showing up late to orientation. My value proposition of the driver is I show up and you can depend on me when I say I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And so when that happens and the first time that you actually need to come and you don't show up, there's consequences to that. Now, where 2 years ago, honestly, you would have had a recruiter probably go, please come in next week. Please come in next week. Those days have come to an end. And those are some of the drivers that are also finding themselves on the outskirts of the industry right now.
Yes. And with saying that, that goes both ways. So now also, whether it is a third party agency or an actual company, now we as executive or directors or whatever the leadership have to now train our recruiting staff. You are now not, quote unquote, just a regular driver recruiter. You are a corporate, or should see yourself as a corporate or executive recruiter, right? Because you are recruiting professional drivers.
Yep.
You're not recruiting a driver that will no show. So your objective is to talk to them differently. Let them know everything that they need to know with the understanding that they're showing up and what will happen if they don't. The same thing when they hire you. So the same type of, so making sure that the recruiters, we are trained in a different type of way and get us retrained and all of that, right? So it goes the same way. Also, hiring and encouraging everyone to hire a diverse staff all the way around, because your shippers, the people at the front desk, when they go, everybody is different. You got women, you got short, tall, speak different languages, different cultures, and all of that. So your profit, let's talk about profit, really comes when you have people that walk up to you and look like, act like what that other person is.
Yep.
So things like that, making sure you're open, and also having, I don't like to use the work-life balance because that's not what I mean, but definitely making it friendly for different folk, or an environment for women. For an example, your type of runs are good for women because of the safety factor.
Yeah, and it's been one of the challenges of our industry here is part of why more women are not in our industry is it's not the schedule tends to be a real barrier, especially if you're earlier in life. You may be more likely to be the one that's at home taking care of the kids. Yeah. So when you get into the industry, you can't be out 4 to 6 weeks at a time.
Right.
God forbid something goes wrong. I know with my kids, as much as I want to say they love their daddy, they're more likely to call mom when something goes wrong. And so if mom's 2,000 miles away, that's difficult. So it's distance, it's schedule. Fortunately, we have factors that are helping us as distribution centers continue to get closer and closer together. The average length of haul continues to contract, and there's very few true 48-state carriers at this point. With that said, as an industry, we have to continue to look at ways to be more inviting to women, because if we are, it'll benefit us and our turnover rate goes down with the men at the same time. The two are not mutually exclusive. They may have different reasons why they want those things, but most studies have shown both men and women want to have better home time, same pay opportunities with that better home time, and set schedules. Their reasoning for wanting those may be different, but if we do that, it's going to attract more women to the industry, and just coincidentally, we'll have better turnover of the men that we have.
And that actually takes me back to my number one point, which is a compensation package, which doesn't always mean pay, right?
Yep.
So that is just simply asking, and it goes back to your Hello Retention program that you have, right? So that is just simply asking different packages that can be put together for your workforce, for your diverse workforce. Because sometimes your benefit package is not always your regular health, 401k, things like that. It might be other things that help with scheduling or certain flexibility.
Yep.
That we're not even thinking of because it's not our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not that particular person. That's what makes it diverse. And you have a lot of different people.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Now, obviously, we're going to fit into a different bucket. You're going to see with us being based in El Paso and having a major operation in Laredo, obviously, our driver base is going to be heavily Hispanic compared to other organizations. With that said, though, it goes beyond race. It is definitely how do we attract the largest audience possible?
Yeah.
It makes you much better as an organization. And when it gets into career development beyond just the drivers that we hire, those drivers that we hire today are next rounds of dispatchers, safety professionals, trainers, owner-operators that we develop internally there. If you have a wide swath of the population representing your company, you get a wide swath of opinions and views. It makes the end product significantly better and your company stronger.
Yeah, I like that because it circled right back around. Also, with these, and I like that grant because it will have everything up to date, because these trucks are technology. Everything, the ELDs, everything is moving more towards technology, AIs, all of that. The driver has to move that way as well. Heck, we don't even do paper applications.
No, I haven't done a paper application since
a month of Sunday.
2008.
Right. You're not walking into anybody's trucking company doing a paper application or anything like that. Even the bill of sale, nothing is done with on paper anymore. So to make sure that the driver knows how to use whatever technology is going on within the industry, that's a big issue. And it's not always because our driving force is aging. It literally should be happening in these CDL schools. We get so many drivers that are complaining that the curriculums aren't robust enough. They're not learning enough because it's not mandated.
Yep.
So that's anything else that you can think of?
I think it's important that and it gets into how we present our industry to everybody else. The average age of a student in trucking school right now is 42 years of age. We need to attract a younger demographic.
Yeah.
Now, trust me, I would like to think that when I'm long gone out of the industry is better off than when I got into it. We should all have that goal. It gets into legacy beyond the money and everything else. Part of the great thing of having kids is it's your legacy. It's how you live on after you don't live on anymore.
Yeah.
And part of that in our industry is how do we attract a younger demographic? One of the things that's very common, and I've gone into at this point about 3 dozen different trucking companies, and I'll ask when I get a group of people ask the same thing. Everybody that has pitched the idea of becoming a professional truck driver to one of your kids or relatives that's under the age 18, raise your hand. And in a group of about 400 people, I'll only see 1 or 2 hands go up. Consistently, it's the same answer. We have to change that.
Yeah.
We can change that, though, by, quite frankly, talking about the positives in our industry, and we have a lot of them. We have a direct impact on the economy. What we do matters. Nothing wrong with how anybody wants to make a living in their life, but what we do literally moves the economy. And we should talk about it with more pride, especially to those that are younger than us. And it should be one of those things that we talk to people about, it not being somehow a concession that you become a truck driver. It's one of those professions. We have about 3.8 million jobs in this country that require secondary education that's not college, that pay more than the average household income. Pipe fitters, welders, electricians, and the biggest one is truck driver.
Yeah.
And I believe it's in 21 different states that it is the most done profession. It's in 21 states is truck driver. We have to do a better job of popularizing that.
I definitely agree with that. I agree with that. You don't need to take out major student loans, and you can still make a great living and a good, honest living, and can go home and tell your mom, dad, and your grandma about it.
Yep. I feel bad for those folks that rack up $100,000 in student debt to get out of college and start a job at $35,000 a year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we're going to do is go to commercial. We're going to come back, definitely talk about the road check week in May. So see you back in 2 and 2. Hey everybody, welcome back. So again, the Rig on Wheels Faces of the Road calendar 2024 is for sale right now for $29.95. It's on the website. Go to rigonwheels.com and go to the road store. It's the tab on rigonwheels.com, and you can go on and do that. But if you notice in May, right?
Yes.
So in May, on the 14th, on here, I know you probably can't see it on here, but it has it right here. Is the International Road Check Week. So all of your, just to let you know, all of your trucking important dates and things like that are within your trucking calendar, right? So your Faces of the Road 2024 trucking calendar. So it's all right here. And Pierson, what were you saying about Road Check Week?
Well, one of the big topics they're going to cover during that is drug and alcohol. So they're going to be looking, are people impaired on the road? Are they part of a random clearinghouse, and a few other factors on this? One of the things, as we talked about in the last segment here, as far as the drug and alcohol taking off, about 160,000 drivers at this point. 57% of those are marijuana. I know that in a lot of states, marijuana is now legal, but we're regulated at the federal level with the Department of Transportation. So as we talk about our industry, as we look at the jobs, don't hit the funny cigarettes. Do not be smoking marijuana. And it's one of those things that, look, those folks that are using recreational drugs, which is about 8% of the population, we're not a valid career choice for. And those people, as much as in the long run it makes my job a little bit harder, I'm okay making that sacrifice, but ultimately we'll be much better off because of it.
And something else too. So in the truck stops, it's not just in the truck stops, so because we're in the trucking industry, I want to go ahead and say this. In the truck stops, they got CBD oil, your vapes, all that type of stuff. Stay away from all of that. So even though they might say, oh, it's not enough THC in order to for you to be able to get popped with your drug test or come up positive with a drug test, they are also not going to say we'll guarantee that because there's nobody regulating that. So don't chance it at all. It's not worth your driver's license. It's not worth your CDL. Remember, you are a professional driver. You're not just a truck driver, right? So you don't want to just have a CDL. You want to remain a professional truck driver. That's one. You also don't want your CDL to be downgraded. That's another thing that is starting, that it will be downgraded. Also, don't take anybody else's medication. So, for an example, let's say you go to the dentist or you don't go to the dentist, right? And you need to go to the dentist and you're having this major toothache and ibuprofen or whatever is not working. And so you want to take somebody's Tylenol 3 or whatever. Don't do that. Because then if you go to a trucking company or it's a random and it comes up in your urine or in your hair analysis, and they say, this is fine, but we need the prescription. You don't have a prescription for it because it's your Aunt Susie's. The medicine is okay, but the fact that you took Aunt Susie's medicine is not okay because it's part of, it's not ibuprofen, right? It's Tylenol 3 or whatever it is. So just make sure that you're staying as a professional driver. So those are some important tips. You don't want to mess up at all and be one of the drivers that make us be close to that 200,000.
Yeah.
And be part of the driver shortage.
Yeah, and I'll point out here on the drug clearinghouse, it used to be that you'd be able to go, oh, it's easy. I'll just go to the SAP program and I'll get back in. What most people have found on that clearinghouse is it's not as simple as just taking a SAP program anymore. It is hard. If you're on the clearinghouse, I literally cannot hire you. And most carriers should not, by law, be able to hire you. And so it is not like where you could go someplace and quickly turn around and get a job a week later. What will end up happening on that road test, on the safety blitz, as an example, is it will show if you're on the clearinghouse. It will show that you'll still have your CDL. Your CDL may not be aware of the clearinghouse because those two systems are not necessarily connected at this moment. But you go into a weigh scale, they'll be able to pull that up, and you're going to be stuck there with somebody's load at a weigh scale, which Greyhound does not go to weigh scales, I don't believe. So you're going to have trouble getting back.
Yeah.
So you do not want to go down that path. It's not going to be a fun exit out of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is our big tip for the week. Stay a professional driver. You made a lot of sacrifices to be in this industry. This is a great industry to be in. Everybody is not able to be a truck driver for a lot of different reasons. So don't blow it by doing something stupid. That's the best advice I could say right now. And we're going to continue to say that. It's like one of the old school commercials, say no to drugs. Remember that?
Yep.
So Smokey the Bear, or is that something else?
Only you can prevent forest fires?
Oh, never mind. Okay. So that didn't go there. It was another commercial. Not that one.
I love a good metaphor, but I don't think Smokey's going to help.
Oh,
us.
there. Oh, Kayla's in my ear saying the dog, the Dare commercial.
McGriff.
Yeah. So it's another commercial I was speaking of. Never mind. Just don't do drugs. But we'll be saying this every week, all the way until and after the road check week, because this is very important, very important. So we're going to go back to commercial, and then we're going to come back with some hot jobs or hot areas.
Hello, everybody. I'm D'Anthony Davis. I'm a truck driver from Cleveland, Texas. I've been driving for 3.5 years now. I recently saw a podcast with Rig on Wheels on YouTube. I gave them a call. They was fast. They was efficient. They helped me out. I didn't really want to be over the road, so they got me a good regional job. And hey, you should give them a call.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. So we're gonna jump in and talk about these hot jobs and everything. So I'm pretty excited. Josue was telling us about two things that was open today, but you don't know.
Go ahead. What did Josue tell you?
I think it was out of El Paso. Let me see.
Then we're on the same page so far.
Yeah, Josue was saying.
We'll hold Josue accountable.
Let's see. A day. He said 300 out of El Paso and 200 out
Yes.
of El Paso.
So it's what we call two triangle divisions. And so if you live in El Paso, 300 goes from El Paso to Dallas-Fort Worth, up to Denver, back down towards El Paso. Home every 4 to 4.5 days. It's a nice job, making about $85,000 a year. It's great home time, though. Like I said, it's about 4 days out, 4.5 days if you should happen to hit weather along the way. You get the advantage. You never really go through the mountains on that division. From Denver to El Paso, you ride along the Colorado Front Range. So the only time you really go up in elevation is around Raton Pass, which is where New Mexico and Colorado come together.
Yeah.
And then 200 is the opposite direction. So 200, we go from El Paso to the LA market, up to Denver, and then back down into El Paso. That one's out about 4.5 days because longer length of haul on that. We have a lot of people out of El Paso that do that division because they happen to have family out in the Southern California area. El Paso is very common for all the mass exodus coming out of California. A lot of those people settle in El Paso, so there's a lot of family connection on why people do 200. With that said, they're unbelievably scenic drives. You get consistent home time anywhere between 4 to 4.5 days out. You're making about 60 cents a mile, making about $85,000 a year. So it's a really popular division in El Paso that we should have open for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Beyond that, I'm sorry if you wanted to say anything on that.
I just want to say that 1,600 plus a week on pay. That's all I want to say. My favorite app on the phone is the calculator.
I will tell you right now, we have a lot of multiple opportunities for teams. And so if you live in El Paso, Albuquerque, Phoenix, if you live out of Salt Lake City, San Antonio, the DFW area, Del Rio, Texas, Laredo, Houston, St. Louis, Nashville, Memphis, Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, anywhere really in Kentucky or Tennessee plus Little Rock, we have team opportunities available. So it could be you and a relative, somebody that you've known your whole life. It could be a husband and wife team, as an example. A lot of different teams that we have there. There's a lot of exciting opportunities. We have teams that continuously make into the six figures. It's a case-by-case basis, depending on what division you go into. But even when I have a market where I have divisions closed, if it's a pre-made team, I generally have a need for that team.
Okay.
So there's a lot of opportunities we can get into there. And then for the solo driver side, you know, I look at Dallas-Fort Worth right now. We have Division 330 that we can open up out of Dallas-Fort Worth or Laredo or San Antonio. And it's a nice running area where you're getting to go out of the Texas marketplace up to the lower Great Lakes states. So places like Missouri, Indiana, Illinois. We don't really go into Chicago that often because we have local drivers in Chicago that will do those final mile moves, which is a nice thing because if Chicago scares you, this division shouldn't scare you because of Chicago. That's why we have the local drivers there. That's a job where you're going to consistently see about $1,700 to $1,800 a week. You're going to be out 5 to 7 days. The miles are going to be very consistent. The pay is good. There's a production bonus involved. You can talk to your recruiter about on that end. And with all of our jobs, we have a diverse health benefit package. So health, dental, vision, 401k. I can't advise it enough with drivers because a lot of drivers, unfortunately, kind of think of the next job as a 6-month commitment. If you stay at a company a long time, your 401k is a great thing that really can help you as you prepare for retirement. And what I mean by that is we do up to a 6% match. It's free money. So as an example, if you put one paycheck $100 in there, the employer is matching it, investing in it. Over time, and this is the big thing, especially, a lot of younger drivers don't think about this, and they should. Time is your friend with a 401k.
Yeah.
So you get compounded interest, and very quickly that $100 adds up to the point when 30 years later you're hitting retirement, and you have $1 million there. You didn't put $1 million into it, but between what we put into it, plus what you put into it, and then that compounding interest year after year after year after year, it starts to add up. Our 401k does very well for us right now, and we have a high participation rate of our drivers that participated, well over 50% at this point, which is unusual because as a trucking company, it's close to about 10%. So it's one of those things that as you look at that and the long-term commitment with a company, your 401k is an asset that for drivers doesn't get talked about a lot, but it should be, because as we go into retirement, they say Social Security is going to run out in about 2033. I'm 42. I don't see myself getting Social Security, in all honesty. I don't see how it's paid for. With that said, a 401k can be that backup for it, because you do not want to be old and broke.
No. Yeah, we knew when high school they told us we want to go high Social Security.
Yeah, I'm paying into it, but I won't have any.
Yeah, we won't.
Yeah,
everybody should thank us though.
Yeah, I paid for somebody's retirement. I don't know that person, but I paid for it.
I want to be thanked.
Okay.
No, but that's great. That's a lot of jobs.
Yeah, we have a lot of opportunities available. I tell you, it's worth calling up at the number on your screen right there. The important thing right now is keep in mind, if you live in one of these markets, El Paso, Albuquerque, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, San Antonio, DFW, Del Rio, Laredo, Houston, St. Louis, anywhere in Tennessee or Kentucky, or Little Rock, Arkansas, pick up the phone. You don't have to remember the divisions that we necessarily talked about this. The nice thing is all of your recruiters are versed in these divisions. And if Rig on Wheels sends you on to MVT, Josue knows these divisions. He can go over them. And anything that we pitch or sell to you as a potential job opportunity, we'll put in writing. You get a conditional offer letter. So before you ever show up to orientation, you'll literally have everything we talk about in writing. You'll sign off on it before you ever show up there. Because if you've ever had the experience where you show up at an orientation and have to look at what you're seeing on paper and go, crap, that's not what I got sold. We take care of that before you ever get to orientation. It's one of the reasons why the percentage of people that arrive in orientation versus what leaves orientation to start driving is really high, because we cover that in advance.
And another great thing is when we talk about a job, we always have a backup job for you at MVT. So let's say something closes or whatever because of whatever different reasons, right? Because there's a lot of people that are applying. That way you'll have a backup. You always want to have a backup plan. I like to have an A, B, and C going into the company, but definitely an A or B. That way you know that you'll be able to get in there, get your foot in the door. So if any of this interests you, definitely give us a call. You need to have 6 months experience. If you're a team and you have one of you guys have less than 6 months experience, that's fine. The other one have quite a bit experience, still give us a call. 281-968-3100, 281-968-3100. But let's say you only have 3 months experience or something else might fit you better. We do have other companies. So go ahead, give us a call or go to the website and complete an application. The Intella app is on there at rigonwheels.com. And that will probably be all our hot jobs, right? That's a lot, Shug.
Well, I'll throw another one out there that we have at this moment here, and I'll talk to you about it here in a second once we go to commercial break, because I'm throwing a curveball at you.
Oh, wow.
So I will say this too. If you live out of the DFW marketplace, there's a very select group, but let's say that you are a recent graduate and you are out of the Dallas-Fort Worth marketplace and you're looking for that opportunity. We will look at you and we will have a conversation with you. The Rig on Wheels team will here. We would take a recent graduate, meaning they've graduated sometime in the last 6 months, and they have their ELDT, that certificate you get at the completion of your graduation where you get your CDL. We can also have that conversation. We have a unique training program available. We are not a big student company. Most of our drivers are experienced. And so if you happen to have somebody that's in the DFW area that you know that graduated in the last 6 months, looking around for their first driving job, we have experienced trainers right now looking for a student to be in the truck, approximately 5 of them at this moment. And so we'd be able to work with you on that, and specifically out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, within about a 50-mile radius of the Hutchins terminal that we have.
You hear that, Rachel? Because you were just talking about that. She was just talking about that this morning. So that's funny. She is psychic. All righty, that sounds good. Well, let's go to commercial because I'm excited to hear about this offline. So let's definitely go to commercial. Let's go to commercial with the handsome guy talking about the car he won, because I want to talk about that when we come back, talking about the car and the car giveaway.
Mi nombre es Carlos Vázquez. Tengo trabajando 3 años aproximadamente y somos B1 y andamos en territorio de Estados Unidos. Lo que me gusta de MVT es que tiene buenos viajes, buenos camiones y muy buenas millas. Mi comunicación con el despacho es muy buena y todo eso, y siempre están a la orden del día. ¿Qué pienso del equipo de los camiones? Pues que están muy bien y les dan sus mantenimientos, sus TO y todo lo demás, alineación y balanceo, todo, cambio de llantas y excelente servicio. La compañía cada trimestre regala un auto para los corredores. Me motiva pues a crecer más como persona y pues, para dar el 100, como dicen, para la compañía.
Welcome back, you all. See, I said welcome back this time. I got a little bit of home training. I remembered this time. But welcome back. So I want Pierson to go into how Peter is going to win the car. Peter is going to be our next driver. I see it. He's going to win the car, and then Edward is going to win the $25,000.
Yeah. So every driver appreciation, we give away a car, and it's to the person that the previous quarter had the best fuel economy. So as an example, this quarter, we're doing our driver appreciation actually in 2 days. On Thursday, I'll be down in Laredo. We'll have activities going on in Denver and DFW, Nashville, and El Paso, of course. But what we end up doing is who has the best fuel economy. And the best fuel economy, last quarter, it was a team that had been with us for 9 months. They averaged 12.4 miles a gallon. Roberto Sandoval got the yearly award, but that quarterly one, if you get the best fuel economy, you get a brand new car. Normally it's a 2023 Nissan, generally a Sonata or what's the other model of Nissan? It's a nice car, though. It's brand new. It's going to be one of those cars that has less than 200 miles on it, so it's a new car. But you know where you are with your competition. We have it posted on the walls in our terminals. You can see on your in-cab communications, after about a week, it starts showing you where your fuel economy is for the quarter, where you rank versus everybody else in the fleet. And there's many factors that can contribute to that. We work with our drivers to get the best fuel economy possible. As we've shared on this show numerous times here, we give you really good equipment, have attractive running lanes that actually are very economical from a fuel saving standpoint. And it's why as a fleet, we average about 9.5 miles a gallon, while the rest of the industry is averaging about 3 miles a gallon less than that. Ends up saving us money. It allows us in a down freight environment to keep driver pay strong. So if you contribute to that, we want to award you for it. If you don't win it one quarter, don't worry. The next quarter, you're completely eligible, clean slate, and you're off and running. And then on a yearly basis, you could win 2 out of the 4 quarters. You might not win a single quarter, but over the course of the year, you have the best fuel economy. We'll give you $25,000. So as an example, Roberto Sandoval, the gentleman that won it for 2023, it's his 5th time in 8 years winning that award. So he's given himself an extra $125,000 over that 8 years without running any additional miles. He just got really dedicated to getting very good at fuel economy. And so it's one of the many things that we do at MVTs that's kind of unique, different. I don't know that anyone has that same type of package. And so it's one of the things that you work with your fleet managers, our driver services department, and then with the Penske team that provides us with the equipment that you're able to do it with. And it gives you the feedback both from your driving behavior patterns as well as under the hood, what's going on under the hood, so that we can make educated decisions on how to improve your fuel economy.
I think what I like the most, no, it's two things I like. What I used to say I like the most about that program is the fact that what's the driving team that helps coach and
The driver services.
the driver services. That's pretty unique because they're really putting their money where their mouth is, really want the driver to succeed in whatever their goal is. But then because I'm a salesperson, right, that is a leaderboard, so the drivers can actually see where they are on the leaderboard in the whole competition. So I don't know which one of those that I like the best, but I definitely like them.
For me, I'm going to say it's the driver services. Normally, if I'm a driver and I'm being called into the terminal, most people respond with, "Uh-oh, you must have done something wrong." That is not the case. In a lot of cases, it is a driver specifically going driver services right there in safety. What can I do to get better fuel economy? How can I manage it to where I can get more miles in the week? We work with a lot of drivers on really career development paths. So it's not simply, hey, let's have a good week. We want to talk about where you're going to be at a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. It's one of the things that, unfortunately, for a lot of drivers, that the job you're hired on to today is what you're doing 10 years later if you're still there. And if it's a great job, that's cool. Somebody might like that. But you may want to have your career evolve and become a trainer, become somebody that owns their own truck, somebody that works in the office in our management team in operations or in safety. There's a lot of those career opportunities, and that's part of what that department's job is making sure that you have every path available to you to be successful. In the long run, you and I start making a lot more money together with that type of mindset.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. That's just pretty good. That's definitely how you support a professional driver. And I'm just gonna throw this out here. Robert is that 125,000 in the last 8 years. He's definitely a professional driver. He's focused and he knows what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has ended up referring about a dozen people to us over time.
Yeah.
And his relatives and his friends that he's referred over to us are really, really strong. And so it's one of the other things I'd also point out is, let's say you get hired by Run Wheels and you have a driver that you want to bring to MVT with you either now or in the future. That same number that you call to get started with Rig on Wheels, we've worked it out with Rig on Wheels here that we'll still do a referral bonus. We'll also take care of our partnership with Rig on Wheels here to make sure that we're all happy on that end. So if you know anybody that wants to drive with you, referrals are a great source of hires for us, especially if you're a professional, because other professionals tend to hang out with other professionals. So keep that in mind. Just when you make the change, it's not the end of the story. If you know somebody else that fits that same bucket as you from a professional standpoint, have them make that call as well.
Love it. That's good. So this is definitely going to conclude our Tuesday show, and we'll be here next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Definitely continue to send in your questions and comments and all of that good stuff. So did you have any lasting comments that you wanted to say?
I talk too quick.
Well, sometimes,
Sometimes I ramble. I get excited.
Yeah. Well, I talk too slow.
We'll even out.
But give us a call at 281-968-3100, 281-968-3100, or go to rigonwheels.com and fill out the Intella app. Remember to get your calendar. It is on the Rig on Wheels store. So it's Faces of the Road 2024 calendar. And go to the it's the Road store. It's a tab on the top of the website, and get your calendar, and we ship it out within 2 days. So definitely go ahead and get your calendar, and we get it shipped out right to your house. If nothing else, guys, we'll see you next week. Be safe, and same time And remember to follow us on YouTube. See you next week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Bye-bye.